former MLB general manager Steve Phillips, host of The Leadoff Spot, weekday mornings on Sirius XM's MLB Network radio channel. He was fantastic last time we had him on. Good morning, Steve. How are you?
Good morning, guys. Congratulations to you. What a World Series victory, and what a story for this team this year. I'm doing great, and certainly glad to be on a day that everybody seems to be celebrating down there in Arlington and Dallas.
How stunning is it that the Texas Rangers won the World Series?
Well, I mean, I think it's really stunning. I mean, the World Series itself between Arizona and Texas, when both teams took a similar path as wild card teams, they sweep through the divisions or the wild card series, both as underdogs. They sweep through the division series, both as underdogs. Then they go 7 games in the league championship series where they were underdogs. But for Texas to win all the road games was again, a stunning turn of events. And then to pull off the World Series, it was a fun series for me to watch. And look, it could have gone differently, right? If the Rangers don't come back with a Corey Seager homer to tie it in Game 1, and then ultimately the Adolis Garcia home run in the 11th to win it, that could have been 2-0 lead. And who knows where the series goes from there? So, things kind of turned on a dime at certain points in the series. But, it's a team that has been resilient all season, and nobody better to manage this team than Bruce Bochy.
Steve, could I make the case that this is an all-time championship run in the history of the sport with the road record, never been done before, winning every single game, scoring first, Garcia RBI record, the back-to-back inning explosions with some of the things that they did going on the road? Could I make the argument historically that this could be near the top in the history of the sport?
I think you could certainly make the case because there were so many things that had never been done before. And again, I think throw into the fact of this that they lost 3 out of 4 to Seattle and ended up in a tie with Houston, and Houston had the tiebreaker. And so where they thought they were going to win the division, on the last day of the regular season, they then have to get on a plane, and instead of having days off to regroup, reset, they have to fly to Tampa across the country to play. It is really remarkable what they did this year, and I don't know that everybody appreciates it as well. And hitting home runs, a big factor in this. Key moments, Adolis Garcia, what he did. Then the injuries of losing Garcia and Scherzer in Game 3, where I almost thought to myself, at that moment, if you had a choice as a Rangers fan, would you rather have, instead of winning the game and losing those 2 guys, would you rather have lost it, gone down 2-1, but still had them available for the rest of the series? What you might choose? Would you rather have gone down 2-1, knowing that, sure, it gives the Diamondbacks an advantage, but at least we've got Garcia and Scherzer back to finish out the series? I might have chosen giving up the game and keeping those guys healthy, and it turned out that it didn't matter, that the supporting cast stepped up. Simeon got himself back on track again. Evan Carter's a stud. Josh Young is such an underrated guy. Young hit over 300 in the postseason, like an 860 OPS. He played great defense at third. Carter had, 6 doubles in the postseason, the most ever hit. And so it was a lot of great individual performances for a team that had a tremendous season.
Steve, we were trying to figure out where we put Bruce Bochy on the all-time list, and we're keeping it to the modern guys, like the guys that we've seen over the last half century. And we're having a tough time, really kind of separating Bochy, Torre, and La Russa. How do you see that?
So I would give Bochy the edge over both of the other 2 guys because I think that when I look at the 3 championships that Bochy won in San Francisco, I look at those rosters and, you think to yourself, okay, how did they score runs? They had good pitching and they scored enough. And so I think he's done more with less than La Russa and Torre. And look, they're all great managers. I mean, and so you feel like if you're praising one, you're in some way criticizing the others, and I'm not. Right? There are 6 managers in the history of baseball that have won 4 or more World Series championships, 3 that have done it in each league, including Bochy. But Bruce Bochy, for me, is at the top of the list because he gets more out of less. he can relate to the current player. It doesn't matter if you're a superstar. It doesn't matter if you actually have a bad attitude sometimes. He can manage those guys. He can manage a star, and he can manage the 26 man on the roster. And what he did with this team this year, with the bullpen that they had, and that he was able to find the right situation. Like, he built the bullpen on the fly. And he's always been really good at using a guy who's been a starter as a reliever. And so John Gray coming in to back up Scherzer when Gray was going to be the Game 4 starter. And instead he says, you know what, I can't worry about Game 4. I got to worry about Game 3. And he pulls him into that role. And then for Andrew Heaney, I think Heaney was really the beneficiary of the run scored. I mean, he needed some cushion to relax and attack hitters, because in some of those, tighter moments, I think that he tries to miss bats a little bit. But again, the timing worked out well for that move also, to where he was able to go 5+ innings. And so, but I think Bochy during the season, his ability to manage adversity, and I don't think people understand or respect the level of adversity that the Rangers went through this year. From losing DeGrom early, Seager was gone a month. Adolis Garcia was gone almost a month. Josh Young broke his thumb. Jonah Heim hurt his hand. And you start working your way around this field. They had Eovaldi was out. And look, when Eovaldi came back, the 6 starts before the end of the season, he wasn't very good. He had a 6+ ERA, but yet he locked down in the postseason. Mike Maddox, too, deserves a lot of credit. He did an excellent job. And to navigate this playoff without real predictability out of his bullpen, I thought it was just an amazing job by Bochy and Mike Maddox.
Steve Phillips joins us here at 105 through the Fan. I wanted to get your perspective on the Rangers from the outside in terms of, this is not a traditional old school team from 100 years ago, but it is a huge market. Has this always been looked at in the recent years as sort of a sleeping giant of a team because of the market size and their ability to spend?
Yes, but they hadn't really spent, right? And so, and probably John Daniels was looking back thinking, geez, if I had gotten $500 million, I might have been able to, go out and build a team a little bit better than what I did too. But give Chris Young credit. He spent it on the right guys. And I think that, I watched this. I grew up in Detroit, and, hearing Corey Seager after the game talking about Marcus Semien and his willingness to want to share this with him and to hug him afterwards, it reminded me of Alan Trammell and Lou Whitaker. And those two guys in Detroit who were a long-time middle infield, came in the rebuild and built it together. And, and Seager talking about, the start of this project to rebuild the Rangers and to be part of that. This is an area where, you've got a new stadium, which is a real asset. You've got a nice size market to be able to generate revenues. And now the core of a real stable team with really good people. Like really good people, like Seager and Semien are just such gentlemen and professionals and humble. Eovaldi is a warrior. I mean, how about him? 12 postseason starts, and his team in those starts is 11-1. I mean, man, that's unheard of in this game. And so they're a great story. And how about the fact that we had a World Series with two teams who 2 years ago both lost 100 games. Like 110 games for Arizona, 102 for Texas. And so this year, all right, so we look at it this year. Think about this. Think about how outrageous that would feel 2 years ago, because the 4 teams that lost 100 games this year, we're looking at the White Sox, the Kansas City Royals, the Oakland A's, and the Colorado Rockies. All right, so pick me the 2 teams 2 years from now from that group that's going to be a World Series, that'll be in the World Series. Like, what, you got a Rockies-White Sox World Series? It seems so far-fetched, illogical, and improbable. But that's the way it would have felt 2 years ago if we said that about the Rangers and the Diamondbacks. And so it really is an unheard-of turnaround for both of those teams to get to the World Series, and certainly for the Rangers to win it.
Steve Phillips, former baseball general manager, back on Shan and RJ via the Boomer Jacks Bar and Grill hotline. Does this elevate or change Seager's standing in the game amongst great players?
Well, maybe for the world to better understand it, but I think that for those in the game, I mean, you're talking about a guy who's now a 2-time World Series MVP. along with Reggie Jackson, Sandy Koufax, and Bob Gibson. That's baseball royalty. 4-time All-Star, 2-time Silver Slugger, Rookie of the Year. Harold Reynolds on MLB Network the other day said he thinks he's the best hitter in baseball. And that ability to hit for average, to take the walk if they're going to give them a walk. I look at that series they played against the Orioles. The Orioles walked him 9 times in that series. 9 times in the series. He only had 6 at-bats in the 3 games against the Orioles. He got walked 9 times. And then they played the Astros, and he only walked once in that series. Now, he's also a guy that likes to ambush the first pitch, right? He likes to jump on that, take advantage of it, and try to drive the ball, figure that maybe it's going to be the best pitch he's going to see if somebody's going to try to get ahead of him. But, I think that when you start looking at the numbers and you look at the postseason, and again, he's just 29. That's the other part of it. But it's not far-fetched to think that he's a future Hall of Famer the way he's performed and the way you expect him to continue to perform.
We're talking with Steve Phillips here on 105 Through the Fan. Steve, the Rangers winning this World Series, it felt like it was a little bit of a year early to most of us. We didn't expect them to really contend until next year. What do you think about the outlook, the future prospects of the Rangers really building on this and being one of the top contenders for future years?
Well, I think they certainly can be. Now, look, the one thing they did, and the reason that I think that I was a little dubious about what they could be this year was because they took so many risks with health with their pitchers. So DeGrom, being here in New York and watching, I thought, man, I can't give him that contract. I just didn't trust his health. And he broke down, but they overcame it. Then I looked at Eovaldi and thought, he only made 20 starts for the Red Sox last year because of injuries. I thought that's a bit of a risk too. And then he went down for a period of time this year. And then Andrew Heaney had spent some time on the injured list last year. And I started thinking, man, they're taking some risks. And in doing so, you might get a guy, if you're willing to go an extra mile for a guy who's injury prone, or you're willing to give him a little extra money for a guy who's injury prone, you get him. And you might catch lightning in a bottle. But, they're going to need DeGrom to come back and be healthy. But I think he will at some point late in the year next year. Scherzer's a wild card, but the Mets are paying most of that salary moving forward. So, and what I really do like is they've got a young core. Simeon and Seager are what? Simeon's like 31, Seager's 29. But Josh Young and Evan Carter are legit stars. They're going to be all-stars. They're going to be legitimate all-star players. Nathaniel Lowe, I think there's more room for him to grow. Adolis Garcia is a beast, and he's not going anywhere. So the offense is going to be there. And the one area where I think they need to strengthen is the bullpen, but it's the one area that in my mind is the easiest to strengthen and to go out and fix. Now, it's also the most unpredictable area, but I think that they've got that. Plus, they've got some young pitchers coming soon, too. So I think they're in a really good spot, I think the Astros are in sort of that transition right now with the new general manager as to whether they can I think they're still going to be really good, but they may not be as good unless they make some big moves this offseason. So they're going to be an interesting team. And so, look, Oakland's not very good. Seattle's up and coming. They've got a couple big moves they need to make. But it's going to be a tough division. But I do think Texas is certainly going to be a playoff team next year coming into this. And then the question comes, how do they maintain and can they deal with all the adversity again? They need a gentler season next year. Not easy to deal with that much adversity in back-to-back years. So they need some guys to stay healthy. But I think that they've got a chance to go on a pretty nice run.
Hey, Steve, real quick, we are convinced that John Smoltz hates the Texas Rangers based on him doing the broadcast from a Diamondbacks point of view the entire week. Did you notice that? And B, is there a team city fan base that thinks you absolutely can't stand them?
Well, here's the thing, and I know that John doesn't feel that way, but sometimes you get caught up in storyline, and when you praise one team, it sounds like you're critical. You're not giving enough love to the other team, and I think he got caught up in that a little bit. Yeah, I will tell you that when I first started to do media in New York, I went to ESPN Radio in New York, and the guy said to me, he said, "Oh, you're going to be great." He said, "Well, Yankee fans hate you because you were the Mets guy. And Mets fans kind of hate you because you were the Mets guy." And he said, "It's perfect. You're like the ideal guy to have on here." And so, yeah, I've had Yankee fans think I don't like him, Red Sox fans think, and Phillies fans think. I've called the Phillies dead each of the last 2 years, and they come back and win. Now I actually take a bow because I motivate them. Every time I say they're dead, they come back and prove me wrong. So, here's the thing. I don't root for any one team. I just root to be right. So whatever prediction I make, I root for that team.
Yeah.
And so I'm grateful because I did predict the Rangers to win the World Series against the Diamondbacks. So thank you to the Rangers for that.
And thank you for joining us on a magical day in the Metroplex. We love having you on. Steve Phillips, former MLB general manager, host of the Leadoff Spot weekday mornings on Sirius XM's MLB Network radio channel. Thank you so much, Steve. We look forward to it again.
You bet. Thanks for having me on for such a special day. I appreciate it.